Hey everybody, Chronicles 2 here, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We last left off, Iris here was letting us know how she deduced that we were both foreigners and the lawyer, and that we have a difficult case tomorrow. Last thing she said was, however, neither of you was wearing a particularly sad expression on your face. So I concluded that the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case. I see. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me that he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Runo has that fancy Japanese sword. I do. It's katana. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that you both come from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Odd. Well, was it a winner? Were my deductions correct? They were spot on. That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction. You even managed the certain something of Mr. Sholmes' delivery. Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please. The case of the Japanese man. So yesterday, Mr. Sholmes apprehended a Japanese man. You were saying? Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after his sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene. Ah, the great detective is a popular man, it seems. Apparently a woman was stabbed on a quiet street somewhere in town. There were witnesses who had seen a short, shifty-looking, stooped man running away from the scene. A short, shifty-looking, stooped man. Mr. Natsume? Beyond any doubt. So Seki-san said he didn't see anybody else on the street at all. But it seems there were witnesses after all. Hurley used his great deductive powers to determine the man's address. It was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police, and what did they find? A short, shifty-looking, stooped man shivering in fear. Ugh, Mr. Sholmes' great deduction certainly hit the mark that time. Of course it did. He's a great detective. Still, that means the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it? Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime. Oh. Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently. Oh dear, I hadn't realized the situation was so dire. That's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person. I thought you guys were at the forefront of, law and justice. That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system. I suppose it is, but in that case, I don't have to hold out much hope for Soseki-san. Thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative. Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about the case as well. Ah, well, I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene. Of the case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, Mr. Nuts. Oh, May? Hurley said he was going to the man's lodgings. If you leave now, you'll probably catch him there. Oh, that's a new location. Let's do it. Iris, do you know where those lodgings are? Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson when you were there? Yes, we know Inspector Gregson. Ah, goody. In that case, give Gregsy this for me, would you? If you do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know. What is this? A 5-shilling piece and a postcard, it seems. Iris's postcard has been entered into the court record. A card for Inspector Gregson with a message on the back from Iris. Is she bribing him? It reads, "Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem." Gosh, this will make the inspector help us, will it? Well, thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try. Sure sounds like bribery to me. Good luck, then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. And I'll be making more special blends of tea, not speckled bands of tea, special blends of tea. So come back again soon. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, it's back to the scene of the crime. So, somewhat dubious that they would exert any influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all. We headed back to the scene where Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. Before I hit the next button, I'm going to go ahead and go into court record, because I feel like this is going to leave my inventory very soon. So let's examine it. 221B Baker Street, London, NW1. Let's look at this. This is a 5-shilling piece, isn't it? I believe it's called a crown. Yes, and you can train a Scotland Yard detective to do whatever you want with just a single one. What? Iris must be the most powerful 10-year-old in the world. How much is 5 shillings, by the way? What's it really worth? Well, it's probably enough to buy all the chips the inspector could possibly eat in a whole month. Okay, that sounds like quite a bit. That's greasy. Greasy money. No. I'm sorry. I am a dad. To the gentleman in black, tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. Trust that won't be a problem. Iris Wilson. Boop. Iris's little handwriting is adorable, isn't it? Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem. Yes, the handwriting might be adorable, but the message is ominous. There's no room for sentiment there. I'm sure it's simply the way you're interpreting it, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I do hope the inspector will tell us what we need to know when he reads it. You don't think it will just make him munch piping hot chips until steam comes out of his ears, do you? What? That's a weird thing to say. Well, that wouldn't be an entirely terrible outcome. I want some fish and chips. As we headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins in hand. All right, Gregson. Oh, to be continued. Fancy. Save? Well, yeah. Where are we at? 1. Let's save on 2. Clouded Kokoro. I still have to figure out what a Kokoro is. Ah, well. Sure we'll find out soon enough. 19th February, 2:38 p.m., Briar Road. Where's Greggy at? Looks as though the police are still here carrying on with their investigation. Perfect, so let's find Inspector Gregson as quickly as possible. Yes, and let's see if he'll take a break from his chips to look at that silver tip Iris gave us for him. Do we just present it? Present this to Gregson. Here is a bribe, good sir. Inspector Gregson, do you have a moment? I'm sorry to say I don't. I'm a very busy man. Much too busy to talk to a pair of foreign gadabouts, that's for sure. We have these for you. A present from Miss Iris Wilson. What? For me? From her ladyship? Okay, obviously more to Iris than meets the eye. Her ladyship. Hold on, my headphone cord is getting wrapped up in my chair. Okay, got it free. What? For me? From her ladyship? Her ladyship? Give that here at once. Come on, hand it over. That's for me. Don't wait for me to give it to you, will you? What was that coin exactly? It's a silver crown, obviously, but it's a lot more than that. It's, well, it's an appearance fee. That's what it is. An appearance fee. An appearance fee? Oh, I see. You mean... No, I don't see. Tell us, Susato. That's right. For the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Her ladyship always offers me a little financial reward for featuring me every time. Yes, yes, of course. I know all about your exploits, Inspector. I read them avidly. Of course, her using my name without my say-so does make me the butt of a lot of unpleasant jokes, but still... I am sorry, Inspector. That must be difficult for you. Never you mind that. So, what do you want to know then, eh? Sorry? Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem, it says. Well, obviously it's not a problem. Go on, fire away. What do you want to know? Well, if you wouldn't mind, Inspector, we'd very much like to know the address of Mr. Natsume's lodgings. Ah, the little knife-wielding, mustached Japanese fellow. He lives in a right old hovel. It's just over there, look. That's it? That's where he lives? Okay. On the first floor of that house, on the corner where that wreck of a bicycle is propped up. That is nearby indeed. If I remember rightly, the landlord is Mr. John Garrideb. Right, well, if you see her again, you make sure you give her ladyship my regards, you hear? I mean it, you tell her that Gregson sends his very best wishes. Don't worry, Inspector, we will. Goodbye for now, then. And long live her ladyship. Well, at least he told us what we wanted to know before he left. Yes, so then, shall we go and see what we can find in Mr. Natsume's lodgings? I'm sure we'll find Sherlock. Definitely. Will his lodgings even be open? Do we just examine them to go in? Yep. It's a rather typical old brick building, isn't it? I'm sure it has a long and interesting history. Well, time certainly seems to have taken its toll on the place. It's crooked and sagging all over. In fact, it looks in decidedly worse shape than the other houses around here. According to Inspector Gregson, that's the house where Mr. Natsume has lodgings. Just across the road from where the incident took place, I see. Must be awful for Soseki-san, getting caught up in something like this in a foreign land. Oh, so we do have to move, I think. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Move. New location has been added. The lodgings of Mr. Soseki Natsume, according to information gleaned from Inspector Gregson. Let's go here. So far, we haven't found much in the way of evidence. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I see military uniform, what appears to be artillery shells, some type of war medal, a picture of what looks like Renee from Disco Elysium, and something on the table, privacy screen, a full-on cannon. There's a straight cannon there. I just noticed that. I don't know why it took me so long to notice that. China cabinet in the corner. All right. Let's look at it. Oh, hello. There's a maid? So let me guess. This is like an apartment building that has been split up into several rooms that are rented. May I help you? Ah, yes. Would this be the residence of Mr. John Garrideb? Indeed it would, sir. And who may I say is calling? My name is Ryonosuke Naruhodo. I am... Mr. Naruhodo is representing Mr. Soseki Natsume. I believe he takes lodgings here. Oh, she was super happy about that. We would very much like to ask him some questions about our client. One moment, please. I shall convey the message to Mr. Garrideb. Okay, so Garrideb must be the owner of, obviously, this building and these war memorabilia, military memorabilia. Did you see that, Miss Osato? It was a real-life English maid. I know, as I understand it, anyone of standing in English society employs a number of household staff. But that was the first time I've ever seen one in the flesh. Oh, this day just keeps getting better. It certainly feels like we've really arrived now, doesn't it? We need only to meet a butler, and the experience will be complete. Well, I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but I understand the sentiment. Thank you for waiting. Mr. Garrideb will see you now. This way. Yeah, that's him in the picture there. You could tell by his moon-like face. You know, he looks like the it was what, mid-90s? McDonald's decided that they were going to stay up late. I think 24 hours in some locations. And they had this moonlight character. He was a practical effect. He was like makeup that they put on a person. It was really weird. But he was like a big crescent moon face. And he represented McDonald's. Bonus points to you if you're old enough to remember that with me. But that's what his face reminds me of, just like a smaller version of that. Dude had like on sunglasses, I think, in the McDonald's commercials. It was very surreal in my memory. All right, first things first, we're going to do like we always do. We're going to examine. Before we talk to people, we want to see what we can find out about them. Now, since we're all the way to the left to begin with, we'll start from the left. I'm assuming this is the cannon we're looking at. That's a full-size cannon. What's it doing in here? Oh my, it's real. I thought it might be a replica. That old thing? Bah, that's a little more than a toy. Sorry? The army was selling it off when I retired, so I decided to give it a new home. Never know when the enemy might attack next. Jolly useful to have a cannon about the house. Are you stirring your tea with your pipe, good sir? Also, I can't help feeling we're kindred spirit here with the military retirement thing. Now, I don't have a cannon in my house, but I quite literally do have a saber hanging up behind me. And I do have what we call a case base of a 120 millimeter tank round that's been turned into a trophy sitting behind me to my left. So I shouldn't make fun of this guy too much for having a full-size cannon in his house. You know, those who live in glass houses and such. Never know when the enemy might attack next. Jolly useful to have a cannon about the house. Really? It isn't overkill? Be prepared, I always say. You never know what this twisted world is going to throw at you next, boy. I was cool with you until you called me boy. Don't call me boy. Do you think there may be trouble brewing, Mr. Garrideb? Always is. Take Joan here. Never fails to have a clean apron in reserve. Dries them over the barrel, you see. They dry very well in the cannon there, Joan tells me, which rather proves my point, I feel. It's been reduced to a drying rack. No wonder the huge cannon looks like it's hanging its head in shame. Oh, these books are separate, and I think that bucket might be separate? No. The books, though. I noticed you have a pile of books here, Mr. Garrideb. Do you enjoy reading? Ever experienced a London winter, boy? The nights are long. No better way to pass the time than in front of the fire with a jolly good book. Oh, there's a copy of Ranced magazine here, I see. No doubt Mr. Garrideb enjoys the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, too. The great detective has a great many followers, it would seem. Well, the magazine, I'm sure, publishes more than just Sherlock Holmes stuff, right? It's kind of a far reach to assume that he's a fan just because he has the magazine. Let's talk about your uniform, good sir. That uniform looks fairly ancient, doesn't it? It's clearly been well looked after, though. That old thing? Pah, not much better than rags, really. Oh? Wore that ceremonial garb at my retirement bash, you know? But I'm not one for dwelling on the past, me. Would have gladly thrown it out, but you know how it is. Anyway, it doesn't hurt to have the odd piece of memorabilia lying around, does it? Oh, I see. Perhaps we should leave the past in the past. Talking about not dwelling on the past, your whole wall is past here, sir. And why is everything crooked? You have a whole ass maid right here. She can just, like, you know, fix that for you. We're not going to talk about the saber, apparently. Let's talk about the artillery round. That doesn't look like a cannon round for sure. Are those mortar shells? They're enormous. Ah, I hadn't noticed. What are they doing here? Ah, those old things? A couple of little rounds I accidentally fired into the barracks during training, you know? Became a bit of a colorful regiment folklore, that incident. You mean you deliberately hunted out the spent shells? Well, I wouldn't say deliberately, exactly. They're only scrap iron, after all, usually just thrown away, I believe. But you never know when things might come in useful, do you? Useful for what, exactly? Yes, well... Joan here did manage to knock one of the bally things on my foot the other day while she was dusting. Oh no. Hadn't shed a tear since 1869 before then, you know? Maybe reconsider throwing them away? Okay. Talk about this medal. That looks like a Medal of Honor, and it's showcased on a very grand banner. Yes, it's displayed with some pride, I would say, although it bothers me that it's not straight. What? That old thing? Sorry? I should be glad to see the back of it, but the general would turn in his grave if I disposed of it. The wall's the best place for it, keeps the bally thing out of my way. So it's just been polished to shine by accident, I suppose. There appears to be an inscription on the medal itself. Look, let me see. It says, for distinguished participation. I was going to jump in. I should have jumped in. I missed my opportunity. I was going to say it was a participation medal. That's 100% what it was. Sounds like the kind of honors even I could be in line for. Well, one doesn't like to blow one's own trumpet, but I was given that for my time in the army. Can't measure an officer by the number of medals to his name, of course. Common knowledge in military circles. You know what? You're not actually wrong. Most of the awards that are given in the military are just a bunch of BS anyway. You really can't judge a soldier by his medals. Alright, let's click this. Your picture here. That portrait of Mr. Garrideb is glaring at me, I swear. Have you noticed that all the little frames contain photographic prints of Mr. Garrideb as well? Yes, and there seems to be a statue of a lion on the mantelpiece as well. Ah yes, seemed to come back from the local pawnbroker with that little trinket. Seemed to come back? What do you mean? The chap who runs the place is a bally wizard. Went in to sell him something and came out with that thing. In point of fact, now I think about it, I rather often find myself leaving the place with something I don't need. The lion ornament certainly does seem surplus to requirements. Susada-san doesn't pull her punches, or her throws for that matter. Okay, let's look at the shutters here. What's this on the floor? Hold on. It looks like a candle has fallen and burned. And then this is just put there to kind of like block that. Let's see what it says. Look at that enormous screen. It must have been put there deliberately. Surely. Don't call me Shirley. Yes, it certainly seems like someone's trying to hide something from view. Yeah, it looks like something burned over there. What could be behind it, I wonder? Just open it. I'm going to have a very quick look. Just a little peek. Ahem, ahem. Maybe let's not, Miss Susato. I think the maid is going to head us off with a cup of tea. Ahem, ahem. Man, we are drinking a lot of tea. To be expected, though. Hey, so those windows, it looks like we can see out of those windows. From the exterior, it appeared that those windows were bricked in. All right, let's look at these. This window looks out over Briar Road where the young woman was attacked. Oh yes, I can make out the policeman on the far side of the road investigating the crime scene. The glass is rather murky, isn't it? You can't see very clearly. Does this thing open at all, I wonder? I shouldn't underestimate the bitterness. I shouldn't underestimate the bitterness of a London winter, sir. Sorry? As soon as you open that window, the tea will freeze in the pot. Really? No Londoner would go opening windows at dusk in the middle of winter, I assure you. Seems very unlikely that these two would have seen anything of the incident then. So are we on the second floor? What is up with, like, has this thing been in an earthquake? Everything is just canted or tilted or moved. There's clearly a candle here, but we can't look at it. Let's look at this tiered tray of cakes and crumpets and scones and biscuits. Oh, look. What a wonderful collection of cakes lined up on that gleaming silver cake stand. Lined up? It looks more like someone has half demolished them to me. Afternoon tea is a time of indulgence, you know. It is quite the English way. It is Mr. Garrideb's custom to take 2 cakes with his tea. That sounds delightful. Oh, wait a minute, though. There are at least 10 cakes on the cake stand. Well, naturally, and it would never do to waste the leftovers. So whatever Mr. Garrideb doesn't eat, I say to myself, Joan, you shall have to tidy up. That's why you're so plump. How magnanimous of you. The other thing is Joan has a similar figure to the lady that was stabbed. Okay. Don't know if that means anything. Shoes are different, though. Let's look at the candelabra that is missing a candle that is laying over here. This old candle holder looks a little out of place here, wouldn't you say? Yes, you're right. It's clearly supposed to be gold, but it's almost completely black for some reason. That old thing? Yes. Just a cheap piece of ironmongery. Gimcrack, really. Gimcrack? Oh, used it when I was studying, don't you know? For my commission. I know it's old, hardly worth hanging on to, really, but, well, still has its uses sometimes. Of course. Does everything in this room have some elaborate story behind it? They're memories, Mr. Naruhodo. Memories. Alright, let's look at the destroyed tea set. Look at this crockery on display here. It's rather unusual, isn't it? Oh my, a genuine London dresser. Isn't it delightful? No, it's really not. Although the shelves seem to be broken and the crockery is, oh dear, it's in pieces. It really is. The word cracked wouldn't do that chinaware justice. Ah, I wonder. Perhaps the cannon was fired at it. Yes, probably something like that, but let's not delve too deeply here. Highly doubt the cannon was fired at it. But that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider a like, a comment, and/or a subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.